This is the Modern Longevitarian. I am Scott Stanfield. Welcome to episode 86. Thank you for watching on Spirituality Gone Wild and also on LinkedIn. Today's topic is the energy formula, which is the title of Shawn Wells' upcoming book released on April 1st. Shawn's a world-leading nutritional biochemist and expert on health optimization. But before we get to the conversation with Shawn, let's take care of a little business. So Harvard Business Review posted on Instagram just the other day that 85% of survey respondents have been struggling with their general well-being, and it's declined since the start of COVID-19. 50% of those 85 had a decline in their mental health. The longer I do this, the more I realize the truth behind the Bruce Lee quote of the body follows the mind. The longer I do this, the more I move towards teaching and coaching mindset before anything else. Your software drives your hardware. The way you think determines how you act, how you feel, and your body composition. I'm taking on new coaching clients for a new group. If mindset, lifestyle, and health span coaching, from someone who's been there, I've been 40 pounds overweight twice, but I've kept it off for the last 9 years. And I turn 49 next month. And I've done that through intermittent fasting, keto, and all the other pillars of being a modern longevitarian. So you can DM me to reach out, or you can go to modernlongevitarian.com/coaching to set up your free discovery call with me today. And I want to talk about tomorrow's show, Saf Bucksey, a human brave. Well, first of all, he's a fellow co-creator on the Spirituality Gone Wild network. And he's also a human behavioral consultant, professional speaker, and broadcaster. He is a recovered addict, an abuse victim, and above all, a survivor. So tune in tomorrow to learn about Saf, and he's a super cool guy. He's going to be tuning in from England on his Friday evening, and it's going to be Friday morning for me. It's going to be a super cool show. So without any further ado, let's get to today's interview with the Ingredientologist, Shawn Wells. Shawn, welcome to the Modern Longevitarian.
Thank you for having me on, brother. Really appreciate it. I'm excited to be.
It's my pleasure. Yeah. First of all, we got to say thank you to Christy Holt for, pairing us up, right? She did an introduction. She was on the show on Tuesday, right? And so,
wow.
yeah, she was on the show, and you happened to pick the same week, right? So thanks, Christy. She may be watching. Thanks for introducing Shawn and I.
Yeah. She's one of my favorite human beings in the world, without a doubt. Love her.
Yeah, me too. We've had two conversations, one offline as a discovery call, and then one online. And we literally could have gone on for we went an hour and 14 minutes. I think we could have gone way, way, way longer than that. But before we get into the new book, The Energy Formula, which I'm super, super excited about, I wanted to ask you about your personal health history to kind of establish for the watchers and listeners of the show here. It's not always been sunshine and rainbows, has it?
No. And you know what, though? Like, it's been a very difficult life leading up to this, but I love the aspect of the obstacle is the way. Looking back now, like the adversity led to me finding my why. And it really started with having a chaotic home and having bullying at school, being morbidly obese and laughed at. And, I was really depressed growing up, and I got good at like self-deprecation and humor as a way to deflect all that. But inside I was really hurting. I never got the girl. I never was on the team. I wasn't the prom king. It just didn't happen for me. I was pretty funny and I was pretty smart, but there was a lot of pain inside. And eventually when I got into a really good business specialty school, Babson College. And that's what I was told to do, is business, because I didn't know what to do. And I ended up working out and using creatine and protein and reading Iron Man and muscular development and reading a book called Optimum Sports Nutrition, where this guy, Dr. Michael Colgan, this is 25 years ago, was like combining amino acids to increase GH for athletes and all this stuff. And I thought it was so cool. And, I was spending like 4 or 5 hours in a GNC like people used to do at like bookstores. And I was just reading the labels, reading the magazines, I'd spend hours. I'd spend more time in there than people working there. And yeah, it was nuts. And eventually I did work there and just that's what I did half the day when I wasn't talking to people, like, and helping them with their supplements. I've just always been passionate about this stuff and want to understand it really well. And I ended up going to my medical doctor for a physical between my sophomore and junior year and telling him about all this stuff and telling him I was making physical changes and mental changes and getting more pride about myself. And he drew out a lifeline between 20 and 80 and said, why not be happy between here and here?
Mm.
And it completely changed my life path. It gave me permission. I was like, yeah, like, why don't I go do this? And so at that point, I really wanted to be a formulator because I was making changes, because it did give me a point of pride. And this guy totally changed my life path. And I love him for that. And it wasn't like his business or job to do so necessarily. But on the flip side of this, I ended up finishing up my degree at Babson, graduating magna cum laude. But then, on my path to get that master's at UNC Chapel Hill, my dream school, I ended up going to a guidance counselor at UNC Greensboro to get all my prereqs. It was going to take 26 credit hours a semester, 2 straight years. And this guy laughed at me. He's like, you're a business student, you'll fail and you'll fail miserably. And then he said, you're not even in that good a shape. And like that night, I almost killed myself with pills and alcohol. I've always fought depression. And it felt like my dream that, I'd been working on for 2 years so fervently, like, was ripped from me. And that was a struggle. But, luckily I did not kill myself. Luckily it gave me my resolve. I pushed forward. I thought about that guy every single day. I didn't go to clubs or bars or restaurants or party. I thought about that guy every day. I crushed it. I got straight A's, got into Chapel Hill. And then I was working between GNC, working online message boards now because I was becoming somewhat of a guru for supplements, like places like bodybuilding.com, me working as an aide at school, and then going through and getting my master's. I was, working about 80 hours a week, and I ended up getting very sick. I got Epstein-Barr virus, chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, Hashimoto's. My body shut down. I was in bed in pain and inflamed for about 6 months. And again, contemplating suicide because I felt like, again, my dream was ripped from me. And I wouldn't ever be a productive member of society. I wouldn't ever live out my dream as this formulator or dietitian and all this stuff. I wouldn't even finish my degree at Chapel Hill. But I ended up stumbling into the ketogenic diet about 20 years ago. And that's like, I've been doing it ever since. And that got me out of bed. It got me out of pain and inflammation. And then I started focusing on immune system supplements and more longevity supplements and sports nutrition stuff that at the time I didn't realize was making me sick. I was taking like a lot of ephedrine and pro hormones and things that were tough on my liver that really shouldn't have been on the market, but were. And I thought it was all about pushing for performance. And that's been a difficult balance for me, is all this biohacking stuff and trying to push the limits when I didn't really have self-love. And I was always trying to strive for achievement and accolades and letters after my name and an impressive resume when I didn't really love myself and didn't know how to love others. I was certainly helping a lot of people, but I just didn't have that self-love. And then maybe the last stop of this is like at Dymatize, when I finally got on in the industry. This is about 10 years after I worked for 10 years clinically as a chief clinical dietitian and gave up on that because it was just nuts. I was having to prescribe carbs all day long to diabetics, low-fat diets to cardiovascular disease, take away the salt from people that had hypertension, all this stuff. We were giving horrible protein like Ensure that was filled with corn syrup solids. And I had to do all this stuff by law or I could lose my license and get sued.
Right.
It just got to the point where it was just ridiculous. And then I finally got my dream job as a full-time formulator, director of R&D at Dymatize, a big supplement company. But again, they were pushing for sale. They said, you got 3 years. We're going to sell in 3 years to a big company. We ended up selling to Post Foods. So it was successful for $425 million. But again, working 80 hours a week, no self-care, pushing to the limit, and I got a brain tumor.
Mm.
And I've kept having these lessons over and over. And then that got me better at paleo and biohacking. And in terms of like more of the parasympathetic side of biohacking, more of the self-care side of biohacking, and not just how do I lose fat? How do I gain muscle? And then the last stop is really this past year is when I stepped into plant medicine for the first time. And that really changed everything and shifted my heart and my mind, learning how to love myself, learning how to be more kind to myself, grant myself grace. And that's when I've really shifted. Now I'm like thinking about optimizing on a solid foundation of mental health and self-love. It's very different from how I spent most of my life, driven for achievement, trying to level up, trying to get in the best room possible, but never feeling like I was there.
Yeah, that's an amazing story. I have so many similar things to that I have. I could stop racing. We mentioned before the show that I'd stopped racing go-karts or I'd race go-karts. And I was going to University of South Carolina. I wrote down I wanted to do business or athletic or PE teacher. Admissions called me and I flipped a coin, right? I literally flipped a coin and it was athletic training. Well, I went for PE. They taught me in a double major in athletic training, right? And I'd always been into the body and always been in those things. But business is the thing that kind of they put you in that category because if you don't know what you're going to do, right? Because you're just going to generically go into business at some point in your career, right? And do that. But amazing story. And I think that I discovered the Atkins version of the keto diet around, probably,
Yeah.
when I was in my, it was in my early 20s, my first bit in restaurants, I gained 30 pounds really quickly, like really quickly. In college, I was like almost vegetarian. I was, obviously PE and athletic training fit, right? I was 157 pounds at 5'10". I mean, I was like 21 years old. It was like all those things. I get in the restaurant business and I get all the fried shrimp and cheesecake and key lime pie that I can eat. I went completely the opposite direction and I had to, and then I got off the Atkins diet, gained and lost weight multiple times until 9 years ago when I started doing intermittent fasting. But I love your story and I'm so happy that you're here sharing it with people with that. Before we move into the book, we've got four comments already coming in. No questions yet, but Miriam, it says, here we go. Let's hear it. And then Shelly Wells, Shelly here from Frisco, Texas.
Yeah,
right?
that's my wife.
Yeah. Yeah. My wife just came in and plugged in I was sending her a text when you were talking because I forgot my charger. My battery almost died. So my wife just stuck her head in the door. And then Christy, Shawn is one of my favorite humans. So glad he is sharing his wisdom and heart.
Oh, that's nice.
Yep. And then we have Samandra, Sam from London, which is not Saf from London, but Sam probably.
Yeah, he's a follower of mine. He's an amazing dude. Supported me when I was out there speaking at Health Optimization Summit. He was like a former like special ops guy and military guy. He's traveled all over the world, like speaks tons of languages, super fit, and is a hardcore biohacker. Amazing dude.
Awesome. But you mentioned plant medicine, right? And, it's something that I search all the time, like how to do things more in a natural way than I would that normally. Like I avoid like even NSAIDs, people who don't know what NSAIDs are. When I was in athletic training, they were like, put ice on it and give them some Advil and Aleve, or that's a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drug, right? So Aleve, Advil, ibuprofen, that type of stuff, right? Because what it does to our gut microbiome, right? So what was it like the first big eye-opening thing about plant medicine that you learned that was like, wow, this is like super amazing?
I was fearful that I spent most of my life kind of with that Timothy Leary type mindset that we were programmed with. And my dad certainly believed, and, not to his fault, of just, drugs are bad, drugs are scary, LSD stays with you forever. And you'll have flashbacks while you're driving and you'll crash your car and all the, horrible things we heard. And, you'll be a stoner, your brain will be slow. And then I started hearing from people like, Dave Asprey, Ben Greenfield, Tim Ferriss, all these people that were super successful, smart, accomplished, that they were using plant medicines, either microdosing or doing journeys and getting incredible effects. And these guys were as sharp and as high up as they could possibly be in their fields. And I was like, this doesn't sync up with what I've always learned, because I was always scared of one, being addicted, and two, because maybe with my achievement syndrome, I don't know what you'd call it, like definitely like addicted to work and achievement. I was worried about catching laziness. And then laziness kind of went with being a stoner. So like those fears were real for me. And it was just confusing whether plant medicines were exactly like these drugs like cocaine and heroin and all these things. And that's what I thought. And I thought that, at worst you could be dead. At best you'd be a stoner, like, hey bro, like dude, the universe, man, like wow, all that kind of stuff, like, Bill and Ted and the dude Fast Times at Ridgemont, like all that stuff. I thought that was plant medicine. But man,
Spicoli, right?
Yeah, Spicoli. But it was just crazy for me that, again, like my mind started to shift. And then I started to have interest around this and talk to my friend Keith Norris, who is the CEO of Paleo Effects, along with his wife, Michelle Norris. And again, someone I super trusted. Again, someone at the top of the game, like in terms of paleo and biohacking. They were running the top conference. And he was having success. He was like shifting, considerably. And I literally saw myself in him and wanted to have the love and the protector energy and the masculinity that he exuded, like a healthy masculinity, not like the toxic, bro, like, punching each other and that kind of masculinity. And it was just impressive to me. So he invited me to an event and I ended up doing psilocybin. And it was just, they talk about set and setting. Like he gave me the right mindset going in, where I was calm and it was beautiful. And the people, the facilitators were incredible. This is so important. If you're not in like the right container, a safe, supportive container, then you can't lean in. You can always lean out of these things and have a bad experience. You can even lean out of high dose. I mean, at some point they can overpower you, but it doesn't actually take much if you're leaning in with good intention and you're setting intentions and you have the right facilitation. And so for me, that was incredible. And in this environment, that's when I had my shift. And I realized, wait, I can feel love. I can be loved. I can give love. I didn't even tell anyone in the room who I was. Like I didn't give them my resume and impress them and then have them like me because I might be cool and I'm followers online or all these accomplishments. They just liked me. Liked me. And that was a massive shift in my heart. And people can tell you that stuff all day long. They can say, oh, like, dude, you should just love people and be more open and, all these things. And it's like, okay, great. But until you feel it in your heart and your brain is more neuroplastic in this environment and you increase BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor,
right? Yeah.
You're not going to rewire your brain and change your heart until you felt it. And then when I felt it, that's when everything changed for me.
That's super amazing. Super amazing. I don't know where to go from here. I do want to tell you that we do have one more thing in common and because your story is amazing, but I had the same experience. I was a director of food and beverage at a hospital in Salt Lake.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And for 3 years and 4 days, it was a long 3 years and 4 days. Right. But I didn't understand why, if someone was on a, cardiac diet, that they couldn't have butter, but they could have trans fats. Right. And I didn't understand. And so I actually sent studies to the dietitians. Like here I am, restaurant manager by trade. I've worked at an oil refinery, fine dining steakhouses, casual seafood restaurants. Here I am, get hired as a director of food and beverage at a hospital. And I am the one sending studies saying trans fats cause cancer. Right. And as much as I love and respect the dietitians that I worked with, we were having to ratify the ADA diets, right? Which were the old school things. Like you said, high carbs and low fat for people with this, low sodium, all those type of things. And that was a year that the bulletproof diet had came out. This was,
Right.
8-9 years ago. And I remember getting an email from one of the dietitians that bulletproof diet was rated by one of her dietitian magazines, one of the worst diets of the year or something like that. Right. But yet you look, 9 years into the future where we are now, and I've been keto for 5 years. Right.
Yeah.
I've been intermittent fasting for 9 years.
Yeah.
Right. I've kept the weight off for 9 years.
Yeah.
Right. I do eat more plants now. You probably can see Fiber Fuel by Dr. Will B in the back, right? So I eat a little bit more plants now because of the blue zones and doing more research for prebiotic fiber and those type of things. But we have that in common as well. And so I haven't done the plant medicine on the level you have, but it is on my radar, right? I look at ayahuasca and shamans and trips to Peru and all that stuff, and I'm like going, okay, maybe when COVID's over, I can look into doing some of those things, right? Listen to all the same guys you mentioned, plus Aubrey Marcus talk about those type
Yeah.
of things as well, right?
Yeah.
With that.
I
But
would
let's go ahead.
just real quick, like before you go maybe to the ayahuasca level and shamans and that kind of blasting off into outer space, it might be an easier transition to do a lower dose psilocybin journey with the right people, and I can
Right.
certainly do those people to
Okay.
where you're altered in a way that you're removing some of the ego constructs that are holding you back.
Mhm.
This also happens with things like MDMA, which is why they're looking at legalizing MDMA and psilocybin because of all the PTSD work they're doing with
Right.
soldiers and things like that. These just open your heart and remove those ego constructs and allow you to feel and work through things, work past traumas, open to suggestion. So that's like going to be a helpful process, I think, for you to like feel your way into that maybe before you go into the rocket ship to outer space.
Right. Well, I am aggressive, type A driven, racer at heart, right? I mean, I started racing go-karts when I was 7 years old. So you're like, let's
Similar.
just go. Damn the torpedoes, full steam ahead, right? Let's just go and see what happens. But
Very similar. You can have some bad results in this
right.
area if you go at it with that approach. You really have to go in lovingly to yourself
Mhm.
and grant yourself grace. And then the most important piece is going to be allowing yourself time to integrate. That's the
Mm.
most important piece. The journey actually isn't nearly as important as integrating what you learned, integrating the changes, thinking through things that trigger you as you move out of that area, and then seeing that, oh, that's a reflection of myself. That's
Right.
really important as you move forward.
Right. Well,
Chris is
that's
good with all this stuff, by the way.
yeah. She said she sent a message, said I can help you, Scott. And we
Mhm.
actually talked about just having this ninja level self awareness. But it sounds like this is where that's taking you with that. So
100%.
yeah,
Christy helps me.
you and I could talk for hours and not even get to your new book. Let's just stop right here. And all right, so the energy formula, and I love this tagline that came in from the email from you. The secrets only a biochemist, dietitian, and certified sports nutritionist could know. Right. So let's talk about the energy formula. I feel like you may have it's just like mind blowing. The 6 life changing ingredients to unleash your limitless potential. So what are the 6 life-changing ingredients? I'm excited. I'm ready to take notes.
All right. So energy is an acronym, and it's for experiment, nutrition, exercise routines, growth, and your tribe. And we can break that down a little bit to cover some of these topics, but know that it's about 400 pages, over 100 scientific citations, full color throughout, including photos and over 60 diagrams. You have surveys in there that help you with your progress. It's insane. Yeah, energyformula.com. But I'm so proud of it. It's only 99 cents right now as an ebook. If you go to energyformula.com, and then you also get a fasting for energy guide and a hidden chapter on natural movement. So getting into it, experiment is the first one. So think of like your bioindividuality. how you explore that. Not everything is right for everyone. And I walk through how you can kind of assess your blood work, your epigenetics, experiential health, and, talking about some of the stuff like we're talking about and how you can have mental shifts and how that affects your epigenetics. But just getting into that, embracing bioindividuality, that all these products or diets or exercises don't necessarily work for everyone. You have to assess whether it works for you, one thing at a time, and then, okay, it does work. I'm going to adopt that, on to the next thing. You can't shotgun a bunch of things like people do for New Year's. So that's one thing we get into. Then the next chapter, oh, nice. The next chapter is nutrition. So we get into how to do keto properly, how to do paleo, vegan versus carnivore. And one of the things I really discussed there is I don't really care whether you're vegan or carnivore. I think they both work very well, especially if you're doing like nose to tail carnivore, or if you're doing a really well constructed plant-based diet.
Right.
Now, you can eat garbage either way, just like keto. You can do lazy or dirty keto. You can do hot dogs and spam for carnivore. You can do gummy bears and Coca-Cola for vegan. That doesn't make it a great diet. And a lot of times when people are comparing these, that's, they're on a biased level. That's how they're comparing the one that they're not doing. But if these are well constructed, we see throughout nature with omnivores, herbivores, carnivores, that they're all thriving. The biggest difference, they're not eating ultra processed, high bliss point, manipulated foods that are garbage. Right. That's the difference. That's what we should all agree on, is eating whole foods, foods that we're evolved for. And so I get into that pretty heavily, and then talk about those things like these high bliss point foods that are engineered to give you foodgasms, essentially, where your brain is like exploding with serotonin and dopamine, because they're not just giving you sweet, salty, crunchy, gooey, whatever. They're giving you all of them in one thing. And it doesn't occur in nature. And so it's overriding the satiety signals. It's making us overeat and be fat and be addicted. Right. And you see that with all the sugar, especially in the diet. We see that it's very similar to cocaine and how your brain responds to it. And you think you're not addicted? I mean, what do you think's up there as an impulse buy when you go to the register everywhere?
Right. All the sugar. Right.
All the sugar.
Right.
Yeah. So then next chapter is exercise. I get into high intensity interval training, why it's so much better than just a low intensity, steady state cardio exercise. You can literally in 5 to 10 minutes do more than you could in 60 to 90 minutes at the gym.
Right.
Like, because you're going to near maximal threshold. When you're at 40 to 60% of maximum, even though you're burning calories and moving your body, which is great, you're not going to make massive adaptations because you're not pushing your body's limits. And in the book, I get into the idea that the through line throughout this book for energy is resilience. And it's really important to look at allostatic load, which is your stress bucket in the body. It's your capacity for stress. And so we are actually a lot easier to kill than we used to be. We used to be very hard to kill. Now we're very soft, if you will. Like, think about like just temperatures. We're at 68 to 72 degrees all day long. We're easier to kill. We don't have that resilience anymore.
Right.
And so
you think about the people in Texas, right? They're struggling with the cold, right? I'm like, go do the Wim Hof method, right? Start doing some breathing, right? Take some cold showers. You needed to be doing it 2 weeks ago, right? Or 3 weeks ago now, but to get ready for it, right? But you're right. We're easy to kill, right?
Right, exactly. So having that greater resilience is a result of hormetic stress. And it's that agitation that creates adaptation, right? And that happens when if you think of the bell curve, that there's an area of that bell curve that's EU stress, that's positive stress. There's an area that's distress on the other side, where it's too much stress, and it's like overtraining, or that bucket starts to overflow. Then there's the Goldilocks zone in the middle, where we actually have the perfect amount of stress to allow for adaptation and recovery And then our body is literally growing more resilient, and our bucket is getting bigger.
Mm.
So when you're training at this higher capacity, that's where that hormetic stress happens. That's where the Goldilocks zone can be when you're doing high intensity interval training. So you only need 5 to 10 minutes at the gym. And they've also shown that exercise snacks, these little bouts of exercise throughout the day, are much more effective than just being sedentary for 23 hours and then going to the gym. So that's another aspect of what I get into in the book. And then I get into some
Right.
hacks like blood flow restriction and intraset stretching and some of these ideas that you can get much faster results for hypertrophy and strength in much shorter time.
Right. I have both blood flow restriction bands for the arms and the legs. Been using those for, gosh, almost 2 years now. Yeah, love them. Absolutely love
Yeah,
them.
it's essentially like it's cell swelling. So it's
Mhm.
essentially like getting to the point of like kind of like that last rep of your last set right at the beginning. You know, when you're
Mhm.
you're burned out and you're swollen and you're pumped and you're like, I can't lift another. This is just fast forwarding to that right away. So
Yeah.
that's where you get the adaptation and the change, and you can actually train at much lower weights. This is really good if you're like overtrained or you
Mhm.
have kind of injury, but you still want to get great results. Some
Right.
bodybuilders have used this when they're training for a show, but they have an injury. This is a way to overcome that. It's a really awesome hack. And then, oh, hey, Leslie. And then another thing you can do is intraset stretching. So this is like actually an idea for like time under tension.
Mhm.
So think about like if you were doing curls and you're doing your set of curls and make sure to not rest at the top, but you're keeping time under tension while you're doing your reps and make sure you don't swing at the bottom, you don't bounce at the bottom. You're just keeping slow controlled reps through your bicep curls. Then at the end of your set, in between sets for 30 seconds, flex out as hard as you can with your triceps. Now your bicep is stretched and fully lengthened. And that's more
Mhm.
time under tension. And then you go right back into your sets and you will find incredible burnout and massive
Mm.
hypertrophy benefits from doing this. So these are some cool hacks that I get into in the book. And then next up is routines. So this is getting into circadian rhythm, which you would probably love, I would think. The sleep wake cycle, how it works with neurotransmitters and hormones, how to optimize for it, having a great morning routine, like Tim
Mhm.
Ferriss talks about in Tools of Titans, that they all had two things in common. They had really dialed morning routines, and
Mhm.
they were also experimenters. They viewed life through that lens of a reframing lens, where
Mm.
they didn't feel overwhelmed by challenges. They didn't feel like something was win or lose. It's win or learn, which we get
Right.
into growth mindset. So I love those commonalities. But the morning
Right.
routine is critical. It's how
Right.
you, yeah, man. Yeah, exactly. And morning routine is how you start your day, how you own your day. You feel like you control the day, not your day controlling you. And I get
Right.
into just 10 minutes of like, if you slowly wake up with, the light getting brighter from those lamps that you can buy, or the
Mhm.
chime getting slightly louder and closer together from the apps or the clocks that you can buy.
Right.
And then you do some deep breathing, like when you wake up, don't look at your cell phone. Do some affirmations. I did that this morning. I just said for 5 minutes to myself, today's going to be a great day.
Mhm.
And I'm actually here in Texas, and I have water downstairs everywhere. I've had, no water, no electricity. It's kind of a mess. But I said, today's going to be a great day.
Mhm.
And, and then I went through reasons why I find myself great and reasons why I have gratitude for all the things in my life. And then I did some light stretching and, I pet my cat, fed my cat and, and then rolled into the day like that. And that isn't even a long routine. Like I can get into like, you can do a cold plunge and you should listen to podcasts and you have a journal and, all these things that you can do. But man, just give yourself 10 extra minutes and that's a game changer. And then, getting into the nighttime routine, Certainly providing yourself proper sleep hygiene, a sleep fortress is critical. You know, going to bed at the same time, that's really important too. So you don't have um, the social jet lag. This actually happens like that when we go to bed like 3, 4 hours later on the weekend.
Mm,
It's literally like traveling to another country and having jet lag on Monday. That's why we feel so tired. We're totally messing up our circadian rhythm. Just like
mhm.
getting all that blue light at night from all these devices and getting ourselves wound up at night from watching these shows that trigger us, the news and Game of Thrones and all these different things with sexuality and violence. And then we're eating late at night, which we're not meant to do, which triggers
Right.
our so like all these things that we're doing is making it difficult for us to sleep, not getting the release of melatonin.
Yeah, it's super important. Let's see, Olivia saying that she's guilty of checking her phone first thing in the morning. Is I wrote a book, a free book just on sleep to kind of lay out the 7 steps to getting sound sleep. It's called Outstanding
Mm,
Landing. So you're right. Like one of the things I learned was like when to stop drinking coffee, right? For 27 years I was a restaurant manager working late at night and working 6 days a week, sometimes 13-day stretches and that type of stuff. So here we're getting ready for dinner service. We're going to get busy at 7. At 6 I'm pounding a double espresso, right? And then wondering why I don't go to sleep till 2 o'clock in the morning, right? Because I didn't understand the half life of caffeine and all those
mm.
things that go down with that. So um it's all that stuff is super important. So with routine, you're basically saying that we can build momentum, right, in life, right? Is what you're saying. We can build momentum by going to bed at the same time, right? Getting up relatively at the same time. Teen portion of the R in energy.
Yeah, so literally, the more you can plan and control your life and keep consistency in your morning and evening routine, the more things can come up in the day and the more resilient you are to them. And
Mm,
usually, like actually, if you read Tim Ferriss's The 4 Hour Work Week, there's a chunking idea or deep work by Cal Newport, like where you do that like 2 hour block first thing in the morning when you get going at work, that you have focused work and you get some big task done for the day. Now, if you have your morning routine where you've dialed everything in and then you get this 2 hour task done, I mean, think about how productive your day is. Even if things come up, is your day is so different from just rolling out of bed, facing traffic, drinking the coffee, eating the donut, checking emails, getting on your phone, just feeling like you're going down the rabbit hole and things are out of control. So
mhm.
that's a huge difference. Like, yeah, we can have things come up, but you have the resiliency because you have the bigger bucket. And we allow for that by having that morning routine and evening routine. And
Right.
then growth is like the next chapter. So that's the G. So that is the growth mindset. And a lot of what I'm talking about has to do with that. Like
Right.
stoicism, Ryan Holiday, the obstacle's the way, that kind of thinking, that reframing thinking, and realizing that challenges are going to improve your ability to deal with stress. So we talked about physical stress with that stress bucket, but there's also mental stress. And your capacity to deal with mental stress improves your capacity to deal with physical stress and vice versa. If I do cold plunges and breath work, I'm going to be able to better deal with mental stress.
Mhm.
I do if I do stoicism and read these books and work with therapists and do plant medicines, I'm going to be able to better deal with physical stress.
Mhm.
So it's, that's where we're looking, that growth mindset is so critical to your success and well-being. And for so many people, I feel like they're holding off for success is a place that you can get to. Sexy is a place that you can get to. Happy is a place that you can get to eventually,
Mm.
maybe. But instead, you can have those things right now if you just say you are sexy, if you are successful, if you are happy. You can be those things right now. Because otherwise, you'll be like me and you just try to keep leveling up and get to these places where you actually never get to, because there's
Right.
always another level. There's always a better room. There's always a better car, a bigger house, a better job. Like someone else is doing it better on social media. Or, I mean, you can have it all right now. You don't have to be a certain weight. You don't have to make a certain amount of money. You don't have to have a certain amount of cars or house to be happy, successful, sexy. Like you can
Right.
have all that now with the mindset. And
Right.
that's like one of the most critical things I feel like to having a great life.
Hmm. Yeah, I've been for the last probably 5 or 6 days in the Simon Sinek
Yes.
start with why. I've been saying start with happy. I mean, literally been saying with myself when I find myself getting a little stressed, but like start with happy. And so I've been maybe that could be a title of a new book, right? Start with happy, right? But I mean, I've been literally telling myself, like sometimes even out loud, right? When something was coming on. And I love stoicism and I love, Tim Ferriss, Ryan Holiday,
Yep.
all their work on that. And really, because you understand that there's so many things in our world that we worry about that are out of our control. I have no control over a pandemic. I have no control over getting furloughed. I have no control over if this county makes you wear a mask and this one doesn't. I can vote for a president, but I don't really have control over, my one vote is not going to swing it one way or the other. Right. And so it's really super cool when you start really digging deep into stoicism. And I love the way Tim Ferriss puts it, stoicism as an operating system, really looking at it as, and that goes into what I said at the beginning of the show, that your software drives your hardware. Right. And so if you have an operating system in your software, your brain, you have a way of thinking, it can really, like I said, drive the way you feel, the way you act, your joy, your happiness, and also your body composition, right? Because you're less inflammation, less stress, and all that type of stuff is connected with all those things. So,
Yeah, and
yeah.
when we stay addicted to social media, when we stay distracted to all our devices, when we stay angry with the news, and like you said, like Black Lives Matter and riots and who's getting elected president and masks and all this stuff that gets us wound up and divided against each other, and then we're buying things because we're upset, we're hungry because we're upset, we feel isolated and alone. Everything that's happening right now is the opposite of a stoic mindset. That's why
Hmm.
it's so important to kind of do those biohacks, not only to think stoically, but also tap into the parasympathetic nervous system more and the vagus nerve more, where we're relaxing our body. We're in ultra sympathetic mode all the time. That whole
Right.
like hustle and grind mindset, where we're hustle is sympathetic and then grind is ultra sympathetic, and grind
Right.
is smoke and heat and pieces breaking off and being sick and getting all these health problems like I did. That's
Hmm.
that's what grind gets you.
Right.
But if we're in hustle and flow, where we can get to that Zen state, that bliss state, like where we're truly living our why and our purpose, and we can get more parasympathetic at times, more vagal tone by doing breath work, by doing meditation, by doing journaling, by doing cold plunges and saunas and all these things, then we can get into that healthier state more often and not be as stressed and distracted and angry and hungry and all these things, like where we're easily controlled and we're constantly buying stuff and we're not living nearly as long as we should.
Right. It's super important. And it's, all of those things, are not all of them, but the hot and cold are definitely another positive hormetic stress, that helps your body respond in a certain way. I call that get uncomfortable, meaning getting out of your comfort zone, get out of that thermostat controlled 68 to 70 degree,
Yeah.
and, it's like you have snow in Texas now, but I live at 7,000 feet in the mountains of Utah in Park City, right? It was the other day, my son and I were down working on our little 1967 Jeep that we plow our driveway with. And I stepped outside and I was like, and I had, just, light coat on. Cause I've been doing Wim Hof for 5 years and I had just a light coat on. Cause I need the dexterity in my fingers to like work on little small nuts and bolts and things like that. Right. Cause if you get really cold, your blood's just sucked out of your fingers or you can't do anything. And I was like, I said, it feels cold. And I said, it feels like 17. I opened the truck door and the thermometer came on, it was 16 degrees, right? So it was like, and I just had a little light coat on, but it's like 5 years worth of like taking cold showers and doing cold plunges and taking hot showers and hot baths and breaking a sweat and doing all those things to be able to recognize what the temperature is and be in it and do all those type of things, right? Without freaking out, right? And that type of stuff. So,
yeah, that's body awareness. And when you start doing that deep work, that inner work, when you start tapping into parasympathetic and you're not always distracted, that's when you actually become deeply aware of your body. You can sense differences and changes in your body with diets, with supplements, with exercise. You actually can tell the difference of different interventions because you're very in tune with your body. And we're terrible at being in tune with our body. We just push, and then there's a car crash. And that's our, we're not in tune to all the little changes, that slippery slope we might be going down. So that's a great point. Right. And then as far as sorry, go ahead.
I referred to the hospital, by the way, as the repair shop, right? Mm-hmm. You crash, something breaks, you come in, get your oil changed, get a tune up, right? Fix the broken bone, the broken suspension, whatever, right? Chassis, right? And then they give you like a formula, get your oil changed every 3,000 miles. Here's your prescription, right? And then come back and see me for another checkup to make sure everything's okay, right? And so it wasn't a place of healing. It was a place of repair, right? And send you back out into the world to come back and get repaired again when something else breaks, right?
Well, even worse is I wasn't ever taking the pit stop to do the repair. I was trying to go 100 million miles an hour down the road and doing the repairs while I was driving.
Right.
Like when you're in kind of that grind mode, like you don't even allow yourself to recover from, bad health issues.
Right.
So, yeah. I mean, that's doubly worse. And I love what you're saying about the temperature for sure. The idea of contrasting is even more of that delta of the temperatures where you're going from hot to cold, like the polar bear club, kind of going from the sauna to cold shower or cold plunge or, things like that. But also to your point, I like how you talked about that it's taken you 5 years. If someone's not healthy, if they have a very small stress bucket, if they have very low allostatic load, then the stress that you're able to endure is not the stress that they could endure. For you, that could be a eustress. For them, that could be a distress. Mm-hmm. So again, you have to be mindful of that and, go into this slow and see how your body's responding to it.
That's where empathy comes in, right? When you talk about growth mindset and, EQ and those type of things, is understanding that somebody, like for instance, right? I've worked breakfast shifts, right? And people are hangry because it takes more than 7 minutes for their pancakes with this high fructose corn syrup to show up, right? And then they get a couple bites in and they're fine. And here I am, I haven't eaten in 16 hours, right? And I'm keto, right? And I'm just going, hey, they're just a carb burner. They just don't realize where they are, and what they're doing to themselves and what the science behind why they're hangry. And so it took me a while to really kind of make those type of connections, right? And go, hey, I'm just going to go back over here and sip my coffee, and I'm sorry that you're upset, right? And go down that road, right? So it was really cool.
But there's so many areas where we're all hangry. There's so many areas where we have deficits, and that's your ego's constantly constructing this story where you're the hero and everyone else isn't, and you're winning. At the same time, you also have the inner critic battling you. Right. So there's all kinds of things that go on with our story and how we weave it. But, that's one thing that, again, in the plant medicine that you can get clarity around is that you have issues in other areas. Mm-hmm. And when you're angry with someone for not being as strong as you in a certain area, that's you projecting out on them because you're insecure about this other area. You're agitated about this whole other area, and you don't even see it until you start working on it and start saying, why am I triggered?
Right.
That's the beauty of that. And that actually gets into the last chapter.
Right. Let's talk about your tribe. Yeah.
Yeah, your tribe. So literally, I love this so much that it finishes on this. We're seeing now more than ever that how critical tribe is and how tough it is to be alone right now. Like so many people are dealing with loneliness, isolation, not having love and companionship in their lives. And there's a toll that takes in our immune system. That hurts our resilience. The number one predictor, according to the greatest study of all time from Harvard that's now over 80 years, for longevity is quality of relationships. It's not cholesterol, it's not diet, it's not job or genetics or all these other things. It was quality of relationships. And that's what you see with these blue zones, places like Sardinia and Korea and all these places where you have super centenarians. You see people living longer because they have quality tribe. Yeah, they eat Mediterranean food or have red wine, but that Mediterranean food and red wine is had while they're together for 3 hours eating a meal. They have that psychosomatic connection in their body that when they eat, it's time to relax and fellowship and connect. Where we have a psychosomatic connection with the sympathetic nervous system because we're weaving in and out of traffic. We're grabbing food from a vending machine. We're grabbing food from a convenience store. We're getting it from Grubhub or eating it while we're watching TV. So for us, food actually triggers stress. For them, it actually triggers relaxation.
Wow.
Have that deep connection in these countries where they slow down and they actually listen to each other. That's so critical. And last thing is like the mentors, speaking of Tim Ferriss, like you're the product of the 5 people around you. So consciously choose those 5. If those people are so critical to your well-being, to your growth, challenging you in the right way, pushing you when you need it, lifting you up, but like criticizing you in a healthy way and helping you reframe, helping you see someone that you can model, do it successfully. All this stuff is so important to have around you, to have these people around you, these mentors around you, and you be a mentor back to them. You need to invest into them. So that's like the power of your tribe. I feel like this is how you get more energy, is all these tools. And I get into all the supplements that you can take and all the hacks that you can do with different apps and techniques and devices and all that kind of stuff. I name everything, and I don't take any affiliate money. So everything is just my honest opinion on what's worked for me.
Right. As all super amazing. And when you go back to your 5 friends, right? I just listened to part of Tim Ferriss's, one of his most recent podcasts was Josh Waitzkin. Right?
Oh,
Yep.
yeah.
And Josh was on episode 2, right? Yeah. And so I've started the Restaurant General Manager podcast, the Modern Longevitarian podcast, and the Modern Longevitarian live show, which you're on right now. And all my first episodes were all people in my network, right? People I was friends with. So Josh is a friend of his, right? And so you hear him talk about taking these trips in the middle of the jungle and doing and hanging out with families and stuff like that. So you can see that type of thing. And I know you have a heart out in just a couple minutes, but we have one question. I skipped it from Leslie because I wanted to wait till you finish getting through energy. And it's right here. I'll put it up on the screen. It says, what is your best longevity hack for someone that is over 65?
Oof, that's a great question. There's a lot of things in the book that I could say. I think it obviously becomes more important as we get older because we're going to have reduced longevity, reduced things like NAD levels, which is a cellular fuel. So NAD is something that you want elevated. And as we get older, NAD gets lower and lower. It's that mitochondrial fuel, right? And so also on the other side of that, we catabolize it faster. We break it down faster. So if we find ways to elevate NAD and also protect its breakdown, we can keep more NAD circulating. We can have more vitality and energy. And one of the top ways to do this that you see in like all these blue zone countries is high polyphenols in the diet. Things like EGCG in green tea, pterostilbene in blueberries, quercetin in apples and onions, resveratrol in red wine, chlorogenic acid in coffee. All these things are amazing for anti-aging. They all raise NAD levels. You can also take a supplement called NMN that I'm a big fan of as well. And what's really cool is there's a couple of those polyphenols that will raise or inhibit, that CD38, that NADase that keeps NAD hanging around longer. So you can take apigenin, which is from parsley, and you can take quercetin. And probably the best one overall is something called FISSN, which you can get in strawberries. So you can get these as supplements or eat the foods, but probably my ultimate combination of increasing NAD and a ton of health benefits from polyphenols would be FISSN. That was shown to be the best of like 10 polyphenols.
Mm.
And on the other side, taking apigenin to protect NAD and stop it from breaking down as much. And again, those will make a big difference on you having more cellular energy, more mitochondrial health, less metabolic dysfunction, improved insulin sensitivity, less inflammation, improved sirtuin gene activity, longer telomeres, all the things. Polyphenols are so critical.
Mm. That's amazing. Amazing advice. That's all, stuff like NMN and NAD plus and all that stuff has really emerged over the last, I didn't really see it until, last 6 to 8 months, really, that stuff. I know that other people in your circle have been talking about some of those things for a bit, and resveratrol has been around for a while, but I'd never heard that we actually break it down faster as we age. Right.
Yeah.
I turn 49 next month, so I'm getting ready to embark on some of those things, right? And so I may send you a couple emails asking you, different questions about that stuff as I start. I'm experimenting. I experiment on myself, right? My Wednesday shows used to be, before I did the cooking shows, were just me going over all the biohacks that I've done to myself. So
yeah.
yeah.
And I'll throw out one last supplement that I think is incredible. I mentioned in the book, dihydroberberine. It's an optimized form of berberine, which is a natural equivalent to metformin. You've probably heard of the anti-diabetic drug that people use in anti-aging for longevity. It's because it reduces glycation, it reduces blood sugar, reduces insulin, increases something called AMP-K. And whether you have impaired blood sugar response or not, it's been shown that metformin and also berberine can improve longevity by reducing inflammation and CRP and reducing hemoglobin A1C. And those are both critical for aging. So that's one of the most powerful compounds you can take. Dihydroberberine is about 5 to 10 times more bioavailable, lasts about twice as long as regular berberine, and you don't get the GI distress that you get with berberine and metformin. So this is like an optimized form. It's literally probably my top ingredient to take for anti-aging.
Wow. That's amazing. Well, that's a great thing to talk about on the show called Modern Longevitarian, right? Right. So it's like, Shawn, I just want to say thank you. People obviously can find you at energyformula.com. You and I were already connected before Christy even introduced us on LinkedIn. So you're there as well. We were already first connections, and you have ShawnWells.com, has a ton of information. And then Shelly put in the ShawnWells.com/challenge. I think so. You have a fasting challenge that's going on.
Yeah. I'm about 40 some hours into my 72 hours right now.
Wow. If I would have known about it, I would have been with you, but I didn't know about it. So I did eat last night with the family. And so I'm not there, but I've only had black coffee today. So I'm as fast as I can be at the moment. Right. So.
Hey. All right. Well, you're kind of in.
Yeah, I'm kind of, I do it every day. Been doing it for 9 years pretty much. Right. So,
awesome.
Well, I just want to say thanks for coming on the show. It's, we're at the time. You got 1 minute left. So, Shawn, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'll just leave my parting thought is, it really, like, my most important hack is just grant yourself some grace. Like, ditch the inner critic, be the kind person to yourself. If anyone talked to you like you talk to you, you wouldn't be their friend. So change that voice inside your head. Be your own best friend. That's really important. That's been a huge lesson for me.
Yeah, it's been a lesson for me too. Just the other day I was listening about, have you heard about PQ, positive intelligence? PQ score? Yeah. And it's like the master judge, right? And I didn't do something. I woke up in the morning, I was like, you jackass, right? And I said that to me. I'm like, wait a minute, there was that judging of myself, right? And so great advice, Ben, and it's something to try to build awareness around as well. So
yeah. All right. Yeah. Well, thank you, brother. I really appreciate you.
Yep.
This was fun, and I can always come on again and talk about supplements or something else if you want to get into that, or keto, or whatever you want to dive into.
Yeah, I'd love to have you on again. I haven't had a repeat guest yet, but I keep threatening to have a repeat guest. This is episode 86, right? So I've had a lot of people on because there's some solo episodes in there as well. But I don't want to keep you from your next engagement. But But I'd love to have you back on. We could talk about keto and all of those things. So,
all right. See you, brother. Thank you, Scott.
all right. You too. Thanks, Shawn. Thank you very much. Well, here we go, right? Wrapping up episode 86, with Shawn Wells. Super informative. He's already gone. He's not even in the green room going on to his next appointment. But again, pick up his book. You can go to energyformula.com, the ebook that has like a hidden chapter on natural movements available. It has all these things. So energyformula.com, you can pick up the ebook for 99 cents. I know that as soon as I get this show wrapped up, that's where I'm going, and I'm going to get the book and do that. I had read some summary parts before the show to be able to talk about it, be able to ask him some questions. And as you can see, he and I are on the same page when it comes to a lot of different things, especially like with his time, being working in clinicals, and me working as a director of food and beverage at a hospital, and also decision making in college time and those type of things. So super informative. Again, and tomorrow, Saf Buxey is going to be on the show. I'm going to read his little short bio here so you can see that, right? So Saf is, again, a fellow co-creator with Spirituality Gone Wild, a human behavioral consultant and professional speaker, broadcaster. He's also a recovered addict, abuse victim, and above all, a survivor. So tune in tomorrow for episode 87 with Saf Buxey. Thank you, everybody. Get one more comment come in. Let's see what we got here. Let's switch over here. So Ben Carr, let's see what he said. I regularly write down I am sexy. Write down. I would say I regularly write down I am sexy. Well, Bennett, good for you, man. Right? And so anyway, I'll talk to you guys soon. I'll see you tomorrow on the show. And Shawn Wells, energyformula.com. Go buy his book before April 1st in the ebook form for 99 cents. My name is Scott Stanfield. This is the Modern Longevitarian. And it's time to roll the credits. I want to say thank you so much for watching.